This video is going to show you Solar Flawless Duality Dungeon during the Season of the Haunted on a Warlock. For those who just want to see that, then skip the timestamp so that I can show you the setup that I'm using. So we've already done a Hunter run, which was really scuffed, and it was when the dungeon first came out, really long. Now I'm a bit more familiar with the dungeon. You can start to sort of hone down on the specifics about it. This will be a Warlock run and recommendations. This is just first couple of minutes, just recommendations of what weapons you want to bring before you start. All right. And subclass loadout. So the weapons that we're using is a kinetic SMG submission, a fusion rifle, which we're going to be using that for the entire thing. That's how good it is. And the exotic sword, the Lament. This will be our majority setup for the whole thing until a certain encounter where I switch off. I'll switch loadout to a machine gun. So I recommend that you bring a heavy machine gun to swap to. This is my recommendations. I'm not saying that it's a must that you run a machine gun, right, for Vault. I'm just saying this is what I like to use for it because it's pretty consistent. And then we use the exotic SMG Osteo, just because I still wanted an exotic, I still wanted an SMG on, so I just chose Osteo, and it's pretty good on this setup. You can use Witherhoard. I highly recommend that, and I have used it. It's all right. Just it's whatever you want, really. I'm still going to keep the fusion rifle on, but that'll be my setup for the Vault encounter at least. And then when we get to the final boss, I'll switch off to my regular loadout that I've said that I'm using for like 60% of the dungeon. As far as the setup goes, stats-wise, you really need to have a high resilience stat. The higher the resilience stat, the less likely you are to be killed by some random stuff in this dungeon. So just spec to your 10 resilience max. You get a 40% damage reduction if you do so. So I recommend just all in resilience. Don't if you recover, even if your recovery is low, that's fine as long as you got that high resilience stat. Get a high recovery stat as well. It is pretty important. If you mess up, you have to rely on these stats. If you mess up your setup with the fusion nades and stuff. So a high on the resilience, recovery, discipline. That's all I recommend for that. In terms of the fragments and aspects, so I'm using Empower and Rift. It's critical that you put that on. Celestial Fire is better than Incinerator Snap, so use Celestial Fire. Use Fusion Grenades. Aspects are Icarus Dash and Touch of Flame. Icarus Dash is really clutch for this. I recommend that you do it over Heat Rises. You want movement options, right, for the Warlock. Warlock can be pretty slow at times, so Icarus Dash will help out with that, as you've got to play a little bit quick at certain occasions. The fragments are Ember of Wonder, because we get free resilience. It's plus 10 resilience. That's the only reason why I've got that on. Second one, Ember of Torches, because we can get Radiant via our melee ability. This is the Solar 3.0's damage bonus. So you've got to put that on. That's best in slot. Next is best in slot is Ember of Solace. You double your Radiant and Restoration effects. Best in slot. And then I'm using Ember of Ashes, which you could argue there's other things that you could put on, like Ember of Empyrean or whatever it's called. I don't even know where it's at, to be honest. See, it extends the restoration. You could do that, but it's minus 10 resilience, so I don't really value it too much. I know you can extend it and all that. I'd rather have more Scorch stacks, right? So, because I'm using a Fusion Grade setup. We're using the exotic Chestplate Starfire Protocol, which gives you double Fusion Grade setup. Obviously, I'll talk more about it in the setup, and I'm sure that you know what it does, but I'm just showing you what I've got on. So armor mods, which is very important. You need to spec out your character properly before you start the whole thing. So helmet-wise, this is where all your... I don't know why the game's doing that. This is where all your ammo finder stuff goes. So don't be running any sort of super builds. I recommend just specking all ammo finders. So I've got sword ammo finder, fusion rifle ammo finder, and these will change if I change my heavy, which I do to LMG. I've got a charged up mod. I've got an elemental charge. I have double solar, double void seasonal mod with elemental ordnance, Lucent Blade, and a charged up. So what does all that mean? It means I get 2 extra stacks of charge of light because 2 charged up. That means I get times 4 Lucent Blade. So we're using a Lucent Blade setup, right? You need an arc mod to pair with that to get that secondary perk, right? Obviously, Scavengers on the boots always. Classy Restoration is key that you put that on the class mod. It's a +6, but it's worth it. And then we're using some Overload SMG loader, because Overload SMG means you can overload everything. not just champs. It works on all enemies. It means they do less damage to you, which will stack with resilience. And that's essentially the setup in total. As I said, spec for resilience. If you're caught off guard and you don't have resilience armor, which a lot of people don't, go to the helm, turn in your engrams, right? So go to the helm, focus some engrams, put your ghost onto resilience armor, and just get all the pieces until you're comfortable with a high resilience. If you're like rocking like high recovery, high discipline, but really bad resilience, it's no good. You need the resilience. At least minimum tier 7 to 10 between those. But 10 is better than it's the best you can sort of do with this. So that's the setup I'm using and the recommendations for the Warlock. So as we start the run, you just need to walk up to Eris to get her to start talking, and then the dungeon initiates. For the first 5 to 10 minutes, there's nothing going on. So if you're just here for the boss fights and the vault encounter, then just skip to those sections. Whichever section you need, just skip to, because I understand it's a long video, so I don't want anybody really to watch 1 hour, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes, or whatever it is. I don't want someone to watch the full run. I just want them to watch what sections they need assistance with, because that's what it boils down to. There's still people obviously going for this. I mean, it's only been out a few weeks, so, you know, obviously that's going to be the case. I know that I checked last week. You can actually check how many people have done the solo floss on this dungeon by monitoring the emblem called Untouched by Opulence. The blue one with the red thing, picture, whatever it is. So you can actually check, and last week there was only 16,000 players had got this. Now, that might not be because of skill issues. That might be more because the dungeon's a little buggy and some people don't understand what's killing them and stuff like that, because there's physics, there's problems with that. But the thing is, there always has been. It's just this dungeon highlights that there's problems with the physics, because the backpacks, they've always had a problem. Phalanx, Leviathan, anyone remember that when they used to one-shot you? They would melee you a phalanx, launch you into a wall, kill you. Right? So it's always been a problem with these types of enemies with physics. It's just, as I said, the dungeon highlights it. So the dungeon itself isn't too bad. Like, the bell mechanic does work 99% out of the times. Just sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the actual bell can kill you, which I've told people what to do about that is not to stand too close to the bell every time. I've done some testing with it, because a lot of people have sent me footage of clips of them dying where they just shoot the bell and then die. Like, that's not from a backpack, cabal, nothing. It's just the bell. The actual bell can kill you. It can slam shut on you, basically. So you'll notice I never really stand too close to the bells when I'm shooting them. You've got that circle, right, that you stand in to activate the bell when you're in the dream world. I stand halfway between the circle and the bell. And I can honestly say, I haven't been killed since this dungeon came out. I haven't been killed that way. I've actually never been killed by the bell. But I've seen people that they have, where they've like glaved the bell, or they've meleeed the bell, and it slams shut, and it sort of kills them. It's weird. That's what I think's going on with you. I'm not 100%. But that's your top tip with the bells, is just don't stand too close. There's quite a big circle there. You can see, you don't have to stand so close. But as I said, I've tested it where you do stand really close and I still don't die. So for me, I haven't experienced that bug, but I know people have. But that's all you need to do is just maybe try what I'm doing then. Stand halfway in the circle, and that way, you know, you don't want to be killed by the bell. There's already so much that can kill you in this, so limit stuff that can happen. I know there's stuff wrong with the game at times, but this game's a nightmare to micromanage, I imagine, on a developer side of things, and I do complain about the game, but there is times where it's like, well, what can you do? What can you do? We can't change it. It's just something that is a thing. But with this little bit here, I'm actually going to farm Charge of Light. I can get Charge of Light via my grenades because I've got Elemental Ordnance, Elemental Charge. Elemental Charge is the bridge between well builds and high energy fire builds. That mod is very important. I'm glad it's an actual thing. It means we can get Lucent Blade within 2 grenade kills. So it's great in terms of that. So That's what I'm using, and I'm barely going to use the sword anyways. Well, I will use the sword, but it's mainly going to be for DPS and stuff. Right, I only had the scout on. Right, if you're confused by that, is just to shoot the bells easy. That's all that was for the long distance. I'm going to switch off that and to the SMG I mentioned earlier. So this is the Gahlran fight. So I can only really just cover what we actually do. If this makes sense, you know, it's fine. But it's basically just to explain the mechanics, because that's all I can do when you're adding commentary to it. So when you go into the dream world, which this is the red aura world, whatever you want to call it, right? When you go here, it's teaching you the standard bearer mechanic. So you get 2 bearers. When you kill a bearer, you get a flag. That flag is matching a symbol on the outside world, I'm sure you saw, right? But the trick is to kill both bearers, but only pick 1 flag up at a time. Right, this extends DPS, because when you kill nightmares, because obviously you start with a nightmare collapsing at 60 seconds. When you kill a nightmare, you get a time bonus. But that mechanic has flooded into another mechanic. Whether it's intentional or not, I don't think it is, but it is what it is. It means you get an extra 15 seconds of damage on the boss, which is huge. It means that you can 3-phase easily, even 2-phase, or even 1 cycle on the Titan, obviously. But we're on a Warlock. We're not going to be 1 cycle, and we just haven't got that damage potential. You can definitely 2 cycle, optimize it and stuff. What I found with this, because I'm using Lament, is it'd be quite difficult to optimize a 2 cycle. You maybe have to go on a different subclass, like use a debuff like Void Walker and stuff. So the 2-phase would be difficult, if I'm being honest. The solo 2-phase, that is. But the 3-phase is very comfortable, which is why I'm showing that, because this is all about, this entire run is all about being comfortable, right? I'm using weapons that are going to be comfortable for people. Obviously, when you slam those, when you slam a symbol, the door will open. This means you get a Colossus. You need to clear that Colossus. Well, you don't have to, but I do. Right? I clear the Colossus. Then you need to come in the room and shoot the bell. There'll be ads spawning as you dunk a symbol, which will be legionaries. The Scions are infinite spawner, but they are a way to get ammo and stuff. Once you do the bell, you're then in the mirror world again, the dream world. They drop Nightmare Essence, the Unstable Essence, which gives you a buff on these enemies. There's a mod called Glaive of Dreams, which you can use and double it up. I didn't go that route because the fusion's too good to pass up. If you have a fusion like this, I recommend you using it. No Composure would work well as well, to be honest. Everyone's got that one because it's a pinnacle, it's a ritual weapon or whatever. Whatever fusion you can think of that's handy to you, because this is more about you being comfortable, not me, right? So you can still copy the setup but use a different fusion, a different SMG, or maybe a sidearm, or maybe an auto rifle like Crit. It's all about you being comfortable with it, but I do highly recommend Lament being the #1 pick for the solo flawless of this dungeon, not for damage but for survivability. The thing is, there is weapons like Storm Chaser, Glaives that double up Unstable Essence, you know, Salvo with the Warlock, the Grey Launcher. All those stuff are great, but when things go wrong, Lament's your best choice because it's got the healing. It's the most consistent way to get the emblem, and that's what this video is for, to get a consistent completion so you get your emblem and you're done. Because once you're done, I imagine you don't want to do this again until next season, which I don't blame you in some sense, because there's not a lot of room for error with the final boss. At least this boss, there's a lot of room to try different weapons out, and I'm still sort of in that phase of, right, is there anything that someone hasn't tried that could be really good for this boss, or even Caiatl, like solo wise, not team wise, because team anything will work. You can just shoot the boss with a primary, you're still going to do a lot of damage. It's just a case of, you know, what works, what's consistent solo wise, because when you go down to that style of play, that's when things are scrutinized. Now you see there, I had the bearer. The extra bearer give me time bonus. See, I've got over a minute. Now I'm going to spam fusion here because it one-shots them and it's quick to deal with. I don't want to use a sword because I'm going to lose my Lucent Blade stacks. Right, so I don't want to use it. Because even if I'm not getting that damage bonus, I'm still going to be benefiting from the heavy charge. I'm going to go in with the Lament straight away first. Then we'll pop a well. I know well reduces damage and all that stuff, but you still pop a well, right? It's got survivability bonuses to it. And if there's a couple of adds up, which there will be, then it's just a bit consistent, right? So the idea of damage is that you just keep doing your Lament, and then once you've done your charges, do a couple of fusion nades in between. That's the idea of your damage. Try and stand in the well, not outside of it. Let the boss push you now and again. Don't sword the boss entirely too much. You see the amount of damage we've done? That damage was honestly average. 5 out of 10 damage, but it's good for the fact that it's a 3-phase easy. You know, obviously the best way to do damage with Lament is basically just do all your stacks. Like get your ×9, do a lot of light swings and then the heavy. There used to be an optimized way, but Lament changes. What people didn't realize, Lament changes season upon season in terms of like, is it bugged? What's it bugged with now? Right now it's bugged with air tracking, whereas before it was the ground tracking. Now it's the air tracking. It's like every time they add something new to the game, Lament changes season upon season. It's like the new Telesto. It's absolutely crazy. Like the amount of times Lament has changed, but it's just too good to pass up. It's so good in terms of it's still the best sword in the game, even if it is inconsistent at times. It's still gonna obviously do really well for you when you're consistently doing damage to these bosses and not dying, right? So we've got our one symbol. We'll kill the bell bearers, which the bell bearers always spawn on the opposite side of the bell that's shut. So if the bell's shut on the other side, then the bearer's on the opposite side. Remember that, because that's a mechanic that's going to come in critical when you're doing the vault encounter. See, the way they do encounters in Destiny, they've always done this, is that they slowly build you up a mechanic by mechanic. This is how you do this. Oh, this seems easy. Oh, but then we start throwing colossuses at you and snipers and then this, and then there's a boss to deal with. So it progressively gets more mechanic heavy. When you first do this though, this does feel a lot really mechanic heavy until you really figure out that you only need to pick up one flag at a time and you extend DPS. The problem though is you can soft lock by doing this. As the fight goes on, you're going to have more flags on the floor because you're getting the 2 bearers per phase. So it's going to get a little confusing a little bit. Just always know that leave the Nightmare Realm each phase with 1 flag and leave at least 1 flag on the floor to pick up at a later date. Just if that same flag ends up being one where you need to dunk and the sound's behind that door, that's when sometimes the door doesn't open and it doesn't soft lock, I guess. You can just do another phase and you're fine. But you don't get the extension of time because you need that bearer up, right? The Scion bearers, they give you extra time, as I said. Always remember where you are as well. This is obviously phase 1 of a damage phase. Like, we're not doing damage on this phase is what I'm trying to say, because obviously we're only doing 1 symbol at a time. So there's a bearer here. Now, instinct is to kill, right? Don't. Then you've lost your bearer. So kill your nightmares. Make sure there's no nightmares behind you. Like, I actually nearly screwed up there. Luckily, I was paying attention to my radar a little bit and noticed there was something behind. At first, when I first looked at my radar, I thought, oh, that's the Scion. But then I saw the Scion was in front of me, so then I was like, oh, that's 1 more nightmare to kill. Yeah? So pay attention, really. You have to be on point, because any mess-ups, you're going to lose time on the boss, and then it'll be a 4 phase. And then you're going to give yourself more risk of dying. The longer the fight goes on, fatigue sets in, etc. You sort of fed up, you want to get to the next encounter. And then you do something, or you rush and say, oh, I just want to get this done. And then you do something that you shouldn't do, and then you die. You know? So that's where, if everything's scripted and planned, you know how many phases you're going to do, right? And you know how to execute each phase. Then you're sort of happy as you're doing it, sort of thing. I know that sounds silly, but it's sort of like, I'm fine. I've got 2 more phases to do. My ammo's good. Everything's good about it. Anytime you're dunking a plate, it's always handy to have a nade and a fusion. What I like to do is the nade fusion combo, right? So what does that mean? Well, what I mean by that is I throw my nade first and then I pop a rift just before the fusion nade explodes. That then instantly gives me my second rift back, which means I basically have 20 seconds of classy restoration rather than 10, because once that rift runs out, I could pop another one. I'll use this more often at the farm boss. There's not much use of it here as much, because there's not many adds and things. It's not too difficult, this boss. This boss is really not a problem at all. So now we're on boss damage. See the Scion? Always look out for your Scion on that second phase. Look at the time boost you get there. So look, 15 seconds extra. Kill your bell bearers first. Always do that. I'm going to actually use a nade because your damage isn't coming from your nade. So don't mind using a nade or whatever. You can. I'll start with Empowering Rift first. Right? I may as well. I'm alright. And I'll do a well. It's sort of how you feel. Right? If you feel as though, oh, I need a well, do the well. It's fine. It's just how you feel. You know, as long as you're getting your Lament damage in, like so, with a bit of fusion aid here and there, it's not too strict on damage. You can see, you know, I'm missing some swings and things like that. I'm not letting my sword charge, you know, fully at times, stuff like that. But you can see it's really good damage. I actually get decent damage on this phase 2 here. But that's why I was saying, if you played Voidwalker, you can add a debuff to Lucent Blade, because the debuff will stack with the debuff will stack with Lucent Blade. That's what I'm trying to get at. So there's that, but you get less recovery and stuff on there. I haven't actually played Void on this on this dungeon yet, so but it is an option. But for now, while this is here, I think this is still the best because of classy restoration. Once you master the Phoenix Protocol, the Starfire Protocol build, not Phoenix Protocol, but the Starfire, then it becomes a lot easier. The only thing where it's maybe not so easy is the final boss. I'll be honest, at times it can be awkward. Things can not go your way and stuff like that. Try and keep on top of your adds, right? Now look, do a fusion grenade, I do a rift, and then I get my rift back. So it's great, this. Try and keep on top of your adds. Just to obviously micromanage everything, really, you know. The quicker you play, the better it is. Or the more efficient you play, is what I should be saying, really. Notice I'm not really using my sword. The fusion's doing everything. The fusion in the SMG's role is add clear, add clear. The sword is really only used for like movement or damage. That's why I highly recommend using a fusion rifle, because it's really good on the backpacks. See, the backpacks, if you kill them without exploding their backpack will lay on the floor. Here's the thing though, the fusion rifle will disintegrate the backpack, no matter what. So that's not something you need to worry about. This is something that you will have to worry about at Caiatl though, because that can actually kill you, that stuff. That's where I think people are getting themselves confused. They're saying, oh, they're randomly dying. Yeah, sometimes you're randomly dying, but also sometimes you're dying to the backpacks. There's backpacks on the floor, you're not realising you're at boss damage, because there is some there at boss damage on Caiatl. And the boss is stomping those backpacks as he's stomping you and killing you. And you're like, why has that happened? Well, because you didn't pay attention to the backpack mechanic. And it's kind of unfortunate, because it's nowhere in Destiny is it explained that these enemies drop backpacks. It's actually true for a couple of enemy types. I can talk about it later on, I guess. Because they all leave these objects. So we'll use the fusion here. We're low on damage, and we have less damage to do, so we can use a bit of sword. It's actually not quite DPS phase though, so it's still the phase 1 of it. We'll prioritize our bell bearers. Then, if you've remembered where the flag was to pick up from the previous phase, which will be handy to you, then you know to go there straight away, because you get less time obviously on this particular phase to go and pick up your stuff. Try and keep on top of the adds as well. Like, don't just like shoot the bell when you got 40 seconds left. That's such a waste. Clear some of the adds, right? Because they do stack up. If you don't clear any, there's tons of adds for boss damage, which can be annoying. Because if the boss is outside of your well long enough, the adds can do a lot of damage to you. So it's something like, just keep on top of them every now and then. Throw a nade over. Do a bit of fusion ammo. I think once you get to 15 seconds, that's when you need to think. Not do, but think about going for your bell. That's a comfortable time. 'Cause by the time you get the bell, it's 5-10 seconds, wherever you are. Enough time to shoot the bell. So that's how you should be playing this. This is how you properly play it. Not just to skip all the ads. I don't recommend it. Okay, so this is actual damage now. So these rooms as well, try and remember where the exit is. Because it's all red, it's sort of, sometimes you port and you're like, which way am I going? Or I can't get my bearings sometimes, like where you are situated. So just make sure you know where the exit is and stuff like that. Like just little things like that, it's cost you time. This isn't too bad though. I lost maybe 5 seconds because of that. But the boss is less than, is 20%. And you can do 30-40% per phase. So this is a no-brainer now. We can finish off damage on Gahlran. So that's how you do Gahlran. There's so many other ways of doing Gahlran, and I'm not here to say that this is the only way to do it. And in actual fact, a glaive's amazing in this. Salvo is amazing in this. Anarchy is amazing in this. Witherhoard's amazing in this. Machine guns are amazing in this. Seriously, you can use a lot of different things. I'm just going with Lament because this is the loadout I chose for Caiatl, so I just figured I'll just use it for Gahlran as well, so it's less switching for me. Less mod switching, which I hate doing mid-runs, switching mods and stuff. So I just went with the one loadout. The only time I do feel as though you want to change the loadout is for the vault encounter, which we're going to come up to. So this is just busy work again. We're just going towards the vault encounter. So we're just making our way there. You can keep on the sword though. I recommend that you do that because you can make jumps. You know, if you nearly fall off a ledge, you can sword back on the ledge. It's maybe a little easier for people to make jumps when they're in third-person view. You know, so just keep it on. And you've got Icarus Dash. I tried Heat Rises out. Heat Rises isn't very good with this build because this build is really a damage grenade setup. So the heat rises where you consume your grenade and get a cure. It's not very good. It's not what I thought it was going to be. I only actually recently tried it. So I don't recommend that either. The build itself's good enough with the Starfire. So this is the way that you go. Pretty straightforward. This jump can kill you, so just hit your head. Keep jumping, hit your head. And at the drop, guard with Lament. Lament has insane guarding capabilities, which can be utilised at Caiatl. That's why it's so good at Caiatl. It's good for survivability. It's good on backpacks. It's good on a lot of stuff, right? And it's good for consistent damage. So this jump is probably the hardest jump for the hunters. And I guess all three characters, this jump can catch you out. So try to sort of be careful with that. If you're on a Titan, I recommend Lion Ramparts. If you're on a Hunter, Stompies, without a doubt you need Stompies to make that jump. Like if you're doing that without Stompies, you know, I would just put on a movement exotic when you're doing that jump. On a Warlock, it's not too much of a problem because the jump has longer distance than what a Hunter triple jump would have. So this is the vault. This is opening the vault. So it's just as you see it. This is the lock. This is the combination 3-2-2. That's what I call it. That just refers to 3 times for this one, and then 2 dials for the next one. There's 4 statues, and the 4th one doesn't get used. So I don't know if there's any other combinations. That would be interesting. I've played with a couple of people on this dungeon. I haven't seen anybody do a different combination, but wouldn't it be so cool if there was actually another combination, and if you'd done that, it led to a different encounter. I think that's a missed opportunity there. That would, if they'd done something like that, because it's Leviathan based, right, type of thing, where Leviathan, when that raid came out, the raid encounters rotated weekly. Imagine if a dungeon had something like that, where not rotated weekly, but if depending on which combination you put in for the vault, took you down a different lift or something. You know, that'd be amazing. So we're swapping loadout, and I'm going to swap some Scavengers. Just bear with me. I'm not going to take off Lucent Blade, even though I'm not using a sword, because I'm not too fussed. I'm just really worried about my Scavengers. I want Scavenger on while still maintaining 1% resilience. You know, I could have put more thought into it and used like Radiant Light and Striga Light, because Striga Light's a resistance mod. So if you really want to, if you're worried about dying and stuff, go all in. Get all the resistance stuff together, because there's a lot of different resistance mods you can stack. I was happy enough with T10 resilience and a machine gun on with Osteo. Those components was enough for me. Like I say, I could take this off, but you know, I'm not right here to just sort of build craft for one encounter. I don't care really. It's just fold, right? So we'll put a banner in. You want to fill up on ammo, definitely. That's very important, because you want plenty of machine gun ammo. So we'll start the encounter up. So this encounter is like, I've already covered this obviously, but I'm just basically covering it again. So you've got the dream world and the outside world, like other encounters, same thing. Just you've got to learn the arena, the room. When you go to the middle world, there's 4 corners, right? So the way I think of it is, I judge where all the symbols are from where the stairs are. Because stairs I class as, let's just class that as spawn point. That's just my spawn point, right? So I'm facing away from the stairs. Cup is top left. Sun is top right. Dog is bottom right. Axe is bottom left. That's my formula. That's how I look at it. Because obviously if you look at it the other way around, it's different. So that's how I think of it. Because it can be disorienting when you fight nads and then you shoot the bell and it's like, oh, which one was it again? Because the dream world looks all the same. I know when you go in there, there's an axe and there's a dog. But that's not clear until you get there. If you go to the wrong room when you're in dream world, because you didn't know which symbol it was, you basically might wipe because of it. So you need to be on the ball with it. So I knew it was sun, so I knew it was top right, so I sort of stood that way, closer to the room. That's another tip, that saves you time. Standing closer to the room is going to give you more time as well. This is where the LMG comes in, so we're spamming our LMG until we get the message, a standard bearer has appeared. Right, standard bearer has appeared. We're going to use a nade. I generally just nade. I always end up having a nade for this, for the Colossus. Then I just pick up the symbol and jump right over those dogs every time. If you've got Witherhoard on, which is also a really good strat to have Witherhoard on with a fusion, or you could have an energy primary on. I've done it that way. Witherhoard will kill all the dogs. They'll sit in that Witherhoard pool as you pick up the banner and jump over their heads. Now you need to establish where the bell bearers are. Obviously, the mechanic from the Gahlran fight taught you that the bell bearers are the opposite side of where the bell is, the opposite side of the closed bell. So you always be looking for where those bell bearers are. There's different ways of doing it, because you could, as you go in the dream world, spawn kill the bell bearers, then go for your nightmare. I personally don't like that, because you're waiting on them to spawn, therefore you're losing time. I don't like it. So I prefer to do it that way. You can also get 2 symbols per run. If you know how to sword skate and you know how to do the strat, then do that. But it's highly risk. If you miss one jump, it's a wipe. So I only recommend getting 1 symbol per run. There's no point risking it. Just do the one, unless you like speedrun and you're going for like a time, the world record time, whatever it is. I don't know what it is right now, probably 15 minutes or whatever it is. Whatever it is, that's obviously what you're going for. You don't need to watch what I'm doing. But for people who just want the damn emblem, right, then you just play sensible. 1 symbol per run. Put a machine gun on, it saves you. Don't use Xenophage, it's too slow. Its ammo is too not enough. Just a regular old machine gun. To be honest, the new one, Chain of Command, is very good, because it's actually an adaptive frame LMG. The adaptive frame machine guns are the best machine guns in the game. Better than rapid fire in my opinion. Rapid fire alright if you can get one with kill and tally and all that, like what we used to have with 21% delirium. Obviously that was amazing, but the rapid fires aren't as good. I'm preference over on the adaptive. So Chain of Command, if you want to use that, use it. It's got osmosis on it, so it's actually interesting. You can make it solar or whatever you want. Bearers are in an awkward spot. There's a solar phalanx, a solar centurion. You got to keep an eye on those, right? So I popped a rift there, I believe. because that was a little dicey. I saw 2 bearers, I saw the Centurion, there's a couple of adds, they could boot me. I always think when I'm playing, when I'm moment-to-moment gameplay, as I'm playing the run, what can happen to me right now? Like, as there and then, what can happen? This might happen. So I might go through a scenario in my head as I'm playing, right, pop a rift. Pop a rift and then melt them down with your machine gun. Or whatever. Or if I'm low on LMG, what does that then change to the encounter? Well, that might mean that I might have to start standing stationary using a couple of fusion rifle shots, which might mean a phalanx might sneak up behind me and melee me, so there's an increased risk. So you need to look at where the adds are around you as you're doing it when you're killing those bellbearers. Also, if you explode their backpack, how close are you? If you're in a 2 meter radius, you're going to take self-inflicted damage. As opposed to with other adds hitting you, that could be a wipe. So you need to go through all the possibilities. Right? Now, I popped a well and it was actually shambles because this boss just didn't want to push. And I don't know why. Generally, when I pop it on these stairs, on the stairs I just did, the boss pushes. He didn't do that. I didn't want to do that at all. So I've actually lost damage because of all that. But this is just going to showcase how good this setup is, because we've got another well, if you want to call it that. It's empowering rift with healing, so it's basically the same thing, but it does more damage because it stacks with radiant and stuff like that. So yeah, this is actually being longer than what I wanted it to be because the boss didn't stand where I wanted him to. See, there's 3 mages that you need to kill. This one that does arc, then there's like an unstoppable type champ. He's not unstoppable, but he looks like an unstoppable. He just wants to melee you and shield blast you, which is good because he's going to come in you well. And then the final one is a Centurion type thing where he goes up in the air and tries to shoot you. He's okay, I guess, because once he jumps up in the air, he's a sitting target. So it's actually kind of good. So that's the first major taken out. Now the second one spawns in. The bells reset, obviously every phase. You know, and the bears will all obviously be opposite of that closed bell, so they're on the other side right now. But it takes, try not to rush between phases. Like if you need ammo and stuff, I had plenty of ammo, so I just initiated this. So I believe it's axe, so you can actually see now it's axe. But that's what I was trying to say before. You actually don't know if it's accent or cup until you actually get in the room. By that time, if you're at the wrong room, it's too late. You've lost 10 to 15 seconds making that travel, because you've got to make that travel point to then get to the next right room. Then you're behind, right? Then there's a chance that the Nightmare collapsing could kill you. And that's the thing. So that's why you don't do 2 symbols at a time. Obviously, in a team run, you would have one guy go one way, one guy go the other way, while one person clears the bell bearers. That's how it should be done like in a team. But it's pretty comfortable as long as you follow the rules of spamming your LMG. Like, you shouldn't be using any other weapon. Osteo's alright, like that's why I've got it on, but I've actually got it on for damage over time. Damage over time works really well with Well of Radiance because you can farm fusion grenades off it. So Wither Horde, Osteo, weapons like that are really good. And I also like having a primary on, to be honest. I don't want to use double special. I could do with the heavy and the Wither Horde and the fusion, but I really wanted to leave the fusion on anyways. Or I could have went Wither Horde, energy primary like funnel web with the machine gun. But I didn't, as I said, I just wanted to sort of keep Cartesian on anyway. But as I said, there's different ways of doing it. It just whatever suits you. We'll kill our next set of bell bearers. This is a dead end, don't go there. See, when these backpacks, when they boop you like that, they don't do that much damage because it's solar, and you need to be rocking double solar on, obviously. I highly recommend that. But here's the thing though, there's physics in the game, so if they hit you or boop you in a wall, then the wall's going to do a lot of damage to you as well, which that's where you can get your deaths. Also, the another golden rule is don't stand next to a backpack as you're killing them. If you're exploding them, don't stand next to them. If you're shooting them with the fusion, you can stand next to them because the fusion rifle will disintegrate their body. including the backpack, which is why I really favour the fusion rifles in this entire thing, because of you having to deal with backpacks quite often, so you may as well get a consistent weapon for them. The master variant has void shields, so you would run a void fusion. It would be the perfect weapon. So no composure, stuff like that. I think on one of these runs I go to the wrong room. This could be it. Yep. So this is what I was on about. When you do go to the wrong room, you're going to lose time. What I recommend that you do is restart. I actually was thinking about it, going to the correct, because it was dog and I went to axe. It's an easy mistake to do. So what I'm going to do is just clear the bell bearers and go again. So that's something I shouldn't have done, but just know that if you make a mistake, don't try and force and overcorrect your mistake. Just go back in and refresh it. You have an opportunity to do that. So I can be the difference, as I said, because you generally, once you clear a nightmare and the bell bearers, you got 15 seconds. So yeah, there's a chance that I could clutch it, you know, but if one phalanx hides and screws with me, that's another 10 seconds lost, and that could be the game over, which those phalanxes can hide if you don't push them, which is another reason why we've got the machine gun on, because of how awkward phalanxes are to fight in this game. The LMG works short work of them. Eriana's Vow, any barrier weapon will work good as well, because he penetrates their shields. Osteo sort of does as well. It does the poison damage. So we'll go in again and get it right this time. So it was dog, I believe. And then we'll just spam the machine gun. Just keep an eye on your health as well at all times. This Colossus can blind you, but if you're standing in sort of these areas where I'm at, where behind the pillars, he can't really hit you, right? And he can lose track of you, like you saw he was shooting somewhere else, so he lost track of me. We'll kill the bearer quick, because we've been a little slow on there. Actually, it's not too bad. We're over 40 seconds, so it's not too bad. We're looking for bell bearers, though, on this side. I have subsistence on this machine gun, so that helps out. So what I would recommend, if you don't have a machine gun where it's sort of good reload or something, put on LMG reloader. I don't care what build you've got on, like if you're suffering because of that, because if you're having to do a reload, like if you don't have a reload perk on LMG and it's a slow reload on them, they can take a while, and that can cost you time in the mirror world. So because you want to be spamming your LMG, that's what it's there for. Now I don't know what happened to you. I don't know, I'd have to review the footage again, but I've been transported to the dream world. I don't know how. Maybe a nade has hit the bell or something, I don't know. If this happens to you, kill the bell bearers, get out. The boss is still damageable for me. I don't know, I must have threw a nade and it must have missed the boss at some point and hit a bell. That's the only answer I can give there, because that was weird. We lose damage, but that's fine. We've got an Empowering Rift. We'll do some damage into Osteo. You'll see how much nades we end up getting here. This guy should push. He's starting to push now. That's handy. I'm going to re-Empowering Rift up because my Class of Restoration ran out. You can't do this if you don't keep getting your Empowering Rift back. Obviously, if you've got no Rift back and no nades, you need to back right up, clear some adds, and then go again with the old Empowering Rift fusion grade cycle. So if adds are surrounding that VIP target, then that's handy because the nade will then explode on them and give you your Rift back. This is final phase. I'm doing a little bit of ad clear here. My ammo is actually quite healthy. I recommend 70 bullets per phase of mirror world's enough. So I've got plenty of machine gun ammo, to be honest. But I'm just going to clear some of the adds. These adds are infinite. They do keep spawning up, but try and keep on top of them a little bit. Like every time you're sort of ready for the bell, thin the herd a little bit and then go and get your bell. We're here to take out the bell bearers. Got that. So we need to get Sun, which will be top right as from stairs, facing away from stairs, so I'll go there right now. And this is the last phase. Actually, there'll be... Yeah, this is the last symbol, I think. I had a good nade on there, so be sure to use your nade as well. Especially on phalanxes, because it'll attach their shield and still kill them. Because they are the biggest problem, the phalanxes. And do not, whatever you do, get close to them, because they can melee you into a wall. It's a possibility. That might not happen every time, because this game doesn't work like that. It doesn't work on presets where this always happens. There's some RNG to the game engine, I guess, which is good and bad, because it means the combat is fluid and feels different every time you play it. But that can go against the player, because some things can happen that shouldn't happen. I mean, should phalanx be one-shotting us? I mean, I don't know. They've always been like this. Like I said, in Leviathan Raid, when it first came out in 2017, they were one-shotting us then when they melee you. The backpacks, they were always a problem in Nightfalls. Like, if you got close to them. Are they meant to be launching us into walls? Maybe it's intended. I have a thing that it's probably intended, but the thing is, this dungeon's relied on that mechanic, so they shouldn't have put something in where it's not consistent with mechanic. We want the mechanic to be consistent in these dungeons, where when you're doing it, like Prophecy's pretty consistent, apart from when the motes fall through the floor, that's not consistent. But generally, the dungeon's soundproof. Apart from the glitch, there's audio, there's a lighting glitch, but that's easy fixed. It has had its problems, but it's pretty solid in terms of you do the dungeon, you know the mechanics, you're good. Right, duality. I know the dungeon, I'm doing the mechanics, but I'm dying. Why? Well, because of all this random stuff that's going on. So that's where this dungeon falls down for me. That it would have been a 9 out of 10 dungeon for me, but it loses its marks for me because of its inconsistency. Its loot is 10 out of 10. The appearance of the dungeon's 10 out of 10. All that stuff's 10 out of 10. The way you fight, all that's amazing, but it's the inconsistencies with physics, and everyone said this. It's the same thing. So it loses its marks, and it means it's not the best dungeon in the game for me. If they ever update Prophecy properly, where the loot's properly farmed, because it's weird how you farm loot in Prophecy. It doesn't work like this. Like 1 week it can be hand cannon and sniper. It depends on what your first drop is or whatever. I believe it depends on which one. Like you have a choice between the hand cannon or the sniper or whatever. Whereas with this dungeon, all the loot's farmable, literally. So if they ever sort Prophecy out properly, then, you know, or maybe give it some weapons, you know, I don't know, then that for me is the best dungeon to play, but it's not the best dungeon for loot. So we're on the final boss. This is what I was on about. He just jumps in the air, so this is ideal. So we can do damage to him with our fusion, Osteo, you name it. We've actually got a backup rift, so keep an eye on your Well-Radiance timer. Right, we're on 5 seconds or whatever coming up. So I'm going to pop that, and I've still got, you know, the health regen to finish this boss off. I've actually got another rift as well, so I don't know why this boss is just sort of like retreating. He's not wanting to push me. That's one thing I'm not a huge fan on this encounter, where the bosses don't really want to push you. Like, probably the best way to fight him, having watched this, is underneath. If they want to go under there, then I'll do a well under there. Next time when I do this, I'm going to try out just damaging them from underneath here, because they seem to like to push under these little areas. If that's the case, we'll just, like, if I'd weld him here before, then it would have been over in like a few seconds. That's the vault encounter done anyways, so as you can see, it's pretty consistent. There was nowhere really in that entire thing where I was going to die. Maybe one instance where I didn't have a fusion aid or an Empower Rift and I got pushed, and my movement, see, sometimes you've got to, when something like that happens and you mess up with your abilities, you've got to let your movement do the talking to get you out of the situation. There was only one instance where I nearly died. Other than that, it was all consistent. The build's consistent, just I wasn't with one instance, but other than that, it's a pretty solid way of completing this. And as I said, you don't need to be going like Lament. Why you don't need Lament on this? DPS is not a problem. Your fusion grenades will do all that. So I really think machine gun shines, and it's the best heavy weapon to use in Vault. If you're in a team and teammates die, you can clutch up and do 2 rooms, stuff like that. So that's what I think on it with the Vault. I'm always really going to use a machine gun. And if it was on Master, I mean, there's barrier champions, so it's a little different on Master. You would have to use a barrier weapon. So therefore, Lament would be a little bit more viable Master-wise. But on Legend, as you can get the emblem on Legend, so there's no need for people to solo flawless Master, right? Unless you're doing a video on it. So yeah. We'll activate this spell here. Head for the exit. There's a chest to my left. I've already picked it up, so that's why I'm not picking it up. So it's just sort of how you see it. There's low chances of you wiping it. The only possibility really is that you miss a jump. Now I was sort of throwing here. I was like, "Where's the exit?" It's here. I've also equipped the sword back on just in case I want to use that. You know, because if you take a big fall or something like that, you can guard with Lament, which I'll talk about when we get to the boss. See, the guard on it works differently to other swords. It has a better guard than other swords. Not better than the Titan Throne Cleaver. I don't mean it in that sense. I just mean your regular adaptive frame swords don't have the same guard ability that Lament does. So it can negate things like boss damage and stuff like that, boss stomps. Now you're going to have a lot of that going on with Caiatl. I'm just thank God that Caiatl's boss stomp isn't too harsh. They've probably minimised that on purpose, and they might have actually reduced boss stomp AoE on purpose because they knew that this dungeon was coming out, because they reduced that recently. Don't know when it was, but they did do that. So they've probably done that in preparations for this dungeon, because Caiatl, because of how the arena is designed, she can stomp you off the map easy. So that's another pro for Lament over using, say, Storm Chaser or whatever. Solo wise, in a team, you've got to go 2 different routes with it. You can actually one phase with a team with 3 Laments, or 3 swords in general, or you go the linear fusion with Divinity, which linear fusions, I mean, 3 Storm Chasers are wrecking this boss. So team wise, you could just do that. So I'm just going to double check my loadout, make sure that I've got everything on. I'm switching back to the SMG. Just check on my mods. I'll have to change some mods, and I think I've got them already. So just double checking everything that's on. So we'll make our way to the final boss fight. Obviously, as I said, we're going to go Lament, Fusion, SMG. This fight basically involves all the mechanics that you've seen thus far. The bell, the symbols. You're going to have more bell bearers to deal with now, though, and a lot more adds. There's infinite wave of scions. The Centurions are spawned in via dunks of symbols, and the bearers spawn up. Obviously, they keep spawning when you need them to open bells up and whatnot. So the first thing you want to do is you need to get to grips with a routine. You need to be in a routine of this fight. So look at symbols first, where you need to go. That will then determine the route that you take. So the way I look at this is, from spawn, if you're facing from spawn, sun is top left, axe is top right, dog is bottom left, cup is bottom right. Now I had top, both symbols were top, so I actually cleared out the Colossus. I don't recommend that you do it every time. It depends on whether you want to or not. I actually forgot to pick up sun there, so I'm going to have to come back in for that. I've actually not noticed. That's my first error of the fight. I don't do that again, by the way. It's just on the first run. So I'll have to come back in here. I still don't realise that I haven't picked it up. I've done everything right. I've just forgot to pick it up. Shoot the backpacks. See, the backpacks, they drop on the floor. Make sure that there's none of them knocking about, because they can sometimes obviously kill you and stuff. Especially when the boss stomps you on DPS, because they'll be there when you go for damage. You do DPS in the mirror world. So anything that you killed, which you will have killed a lot of bell bearers, right? They'll be sitting on the floor. A lot of them. That's where the fusion comes in, because you can disintegrate them, so that'll happen. But if you explode them with any other damage. If you hit the crit, you'll explode them as well, I guess. So we're going to go back in and fix our error for not picking up this banner, which we should have done. We'll have a fresh bell bearers to take, but yeah, I guess it's going to show you the routine that you should be in for dealing with these backpacks. So you'll have a Colossus in front of you and behind you, and dogs in middle. So that's what people find sort of difficult with this. But you should be doing the whole thing with like 20 seconds left. Really, you should be playing to the right momentum, and that's what, as I say, that's where the loadout comes in. If you must, you can even use Lament, right? So when we're dunking our symbols on the outside world, I only ever really dunk 2 like that if I've got an Empowering Rift, because obviously I'm going to proc Classy Restoration, which means we're going to have that 10 seconds time of immunity to sort of tank that damage. Obviously, I still recommend that you run double solar resist though when doing that. So we'll find another rift, and we're on the next phase, right? So we need to establish what symbols there are. This is your time to clean up ads, right? So try and stay on top of your ads, because if you leave a lot of them up, just know that these are here to come back to. You're going to have to do this again. You're going to have to clear all these ads at a later time, so you may as well do it at some point. So try and get in the routine of clearing your ads. You'll feel that it's a lot more safer if you do that. Whereas if you just try and rush all the symbols, especially if you're 40 minutes into a solo, 30 minutes, whatever it might be, or 50 minutes in my case, you just be consistent in what you do, because just think of how stupid it might be that you're wanting to force the fight quicker just because you want to get 2 dunks and risking a death. I actually risked it here as well. Let's try and shoot the damn symbol bell with this SMG, but its range is terrible. It's fine, we'll shoot it from middle and I'll jump over. So that's what you see, I'll do that quite a lot. If the symbols are right hand side, I'll get the bell and then jump over to where I want to be, so that I'm spawn killing those standard bearers as you spawn in. It saves you so much time when you play like this. Now we'll use a bit of fusion while being mobile at the same time. We'll get our 2 symbols this time, doing it properly. The belly's not ready to be rung because we still need to clear out these 2. So we'll kill them. And that's that done. Bell's ready to be rung. It's middle. So obviously if you shoot left bell, then middle and right will be up. It depends on which one's up. It's RNG. You just need to double check which bell it is that you need to go to. So we'll dunk cup. I have not got a rift, so I'm going to actually refarm one up, get a grenade kill, and I might just do some ad clear here. Yes, we can do some ad clear and just sort of take out mainly these Centurions, because as I said, they spawn up each dunk, but if you get a double dunk, you can imagine you're going to get plenty of ads. Also, try not to leave backpacks up. Like obviously if they're respawning, that's fine, just clear them out, because they actually hang around, the left and right ones hang around where you need to dunk. Open the middle bell as well, because this is an extra strat that you're going to see that saves you time on boss damage, makes things more consistent when you need to clear out your 6 bell bearers when you're doing damage. So just make sure that middle bell's open for when you're ready for DPS. Clearing out, making a good job of clearing out our Centurions. A backpack over there. You can see they do a lot of damage to you, even from a range. That's why it's just better to get them out of the way. Get them out of your way. Even if you're not going to shoot that bell, they're a threat, so you don't want that. Also, don't nade a backpack when he's close to a bell, because you'll set off the bell. If you're out of position and you don't know what symbols to get, then that could cause you problems. So try not to use fusion grenades on backpacks where they're close to bells. So now we're ready for damage. I'm just going to shoot with the fusion, and then we're going to shoot the bell. This sends us in early. Just look how much additional time we're going to get. This will then spawn in the bell bearers. We get the 2, right? Then we need to immediately look at the boss. He's going left. Right, now I saw that these 2 bell bearers were going to boot me, so I went out with the sword. I might have lost a stack, but that's okay. I've charged with light. It screwed up my damage as well. So this first phase of damage is kind of screwed, but we will make up for that on the next 2 bells. And you'll be able to still get the consistent free cycle. So when you've dealt with that, look to see if he's going mid. He's going mid. So we'll pop the rift because we're getting hit by the adds. I recommend that you do that while you're waiting for damage, because there's going to be more snipers alive. There's a con to this strat, which I'll explain in a minute. We're getting some good damage in. Now we'll clear out the rest of the bell bearers. We're weak, no rift, so we're well. That's what the well's there for. It's for backup rift, if you like. And then we can do our final phase of damage. Mainly in the 10 seconds, you'll be able to get 2 combinations of Lament off. The light charged and the heavy at the very end. In between, you can do a fusionator too, but that's fine. That's a consistent free phase. And obviously, we messed up our first bell of damage, so that could have been even more what we just done there. See, if I was using a loadout like Storm Chaser, my approach would be different, because if you shoot the bell, like I was saying, before the boss sends you, the game thinks you're going to go after standard bearers. So it spawns in those extra snipers. So you have more snipers to deal with if you do this little trick. So there is a con to it. But what I thought was, well, if I'm going to use Lament, that's fine, because I can out-heal them anyways. Whereas with like a Storm Chaser setup or a Linear Fusion setup, I would just let the boss send me to the realm. You get less time with bell bearers, but you get less snipers. So you've got to choose. It depends on what loadout you're going on. This setup, I think it's fine to have extra snipers, because you've got double solar resist. I presume that you're going to have a high resilience stat from the recommendation. So you should be fine. It's not too dangerous. So this is phase 2. Obviously, calculate what symbols you've got. I've got Sun and Cup, I believe, which is top left, bottom right. So the hardest symbol really is top left, to be honest. So you could sort of prioritize and say, right, well, what I'll do is I'll get top left first. You know, it just depends, and it depends on which spell you've used previously as well. You need to do some planning and think in your mind what way you're going to go in the mirror realm when you're there. It needs to be beforehand on which way you're going, because if you go in there and you're like, oh, which bearer was it to kill? Once you start thinking like that, you're losing time. Time's ticking as you're thinking. So that's something that you want to do. We've done a good job on ag clear, so the room's a little bit more clear than what it was. So this bell's open here, so I'm going to go for Cup first. Spawn kill with the fusion or the sword, your choice, just whatever works for you. But then while we're working on the next bearer, we're going to do some damage to these backpacks, so that they're sort of prepped. My health is full, so I'm free to sort of do what I want. But if the weaker HP you get, you might want to sword your bearers if you want to, if you want to be quicker about it. I play at different tempos. If everything goes according to plan, I'll just play at a normal pace. Once you start having these little mini problems happen, like you get booped, then the dogs are hitting you, then you get blinded, then you might be weak. At that point, break out Lament and just use sword on everything, because you can farm up power ammo later on in the fight. Alright? There's always a get out of jail free card with that. So you don't need to have max ammo up. Like, you don't need to save Lament at all times. You can break it out and use it. That's the beauty of it. And you're going to get that health regen. So if you are pretty weak, you're going to get regen and you're going to be fine. So you just need to sort of see what's happening at that time. Moment to moment gameplay. What's happening? Right? If everything's going according to plan, the bell bearers aren't hiding behind pillars or doing this, that or the other, then you're fine. Also, Colossus, there's a bit of randomness with that. Sometimes they can be aggroed on you as you come in the realm, but sometimes they can be actually not even looking at you. On later phases, they actually de-aggro and they're looking the other way. Because as we know in this game, adds get bored. So they're actually existing in the other realm. They're just standing there. They'll get bored on the later phases and just face the other way. So it's something that can, so as the fight goes on, it can be a little bit easier that way, but you definitely want to make sure that you're getting your damage correctly, because if you don't, if you mess up one bell and Caiatl goes to that bell, you lose all your damage. All of it's lost. She ports back to the normal realm and you have to do it all again. Now just think, there's a lot of work you've got to put in. It's 4 symbols. A lot of Centurions you've got to kill just to get to that damage phase. So make sure that you're consistent with what you're doing at the very least. Alright, because imagine 4 phase and 5 phase in this fight. It's a hell of a long fight. Don't make it any longer than what it needs to be, really. Like, you know, you could 2 phase with the Lament. Solo 2 phase. It is possible. But this loadout ticks all the boxes. You've got survivability, you've got well, you've got the fusion grades, you've got the DPS, you've got classy restoration. For the Warlock, it ticks all the boxes. I'm not saying it's better than the Hunter. In actual fact, if you're a Hunter main, just do this on a Hunter. It's actually easiest on a Hunter, but it's still alright on a Warlock as well. And also a Titan. In actual case, the Warlock's the harder one. If I'm being honest. Generally that's never the case, right? The easiest 2 classes on this are Hunter and Titan. The Warlock, for once, is actually the worst to do it on. Not to mean that the Warlock's bad. It's just that it's the worst to do it on out of the 3. But in PvE, most people are Warlock mains, so people are mainly wanting the Warlock guy. I've seen a lot of people asking mainly for Warlock stuff, or even Titan. Not so much Hunter, because I think people realise Hunter's clear cut in terms of what you do with that. So we're going to focus a bit more ads. There's a lot of Centurions up. I don't have an Rift, but I do have double fusion, so I can easily get that back. The SMG does really good in this. I found it to be really good. Obviously it doesn't have the range of like a scout or whatever. What I would recommend, use what you're comfortable with. I'm not saying that you must use this weapon. Maybe use a weapon very similar to this. Like if you like ag clear weapon, maybe use Crate. It has more range than an SMG would, and it's still got good ag clear. So if you want to do that, do that. You know, or if you want to use a scout and sit back, you can do that as well. I've done that on my first solo flawless. So the boss is going middle. That's fine. Don't shoot the bell too soon though. I know it might be tempting, but don't. So we'll get our damage in on phase 2. This is where we really need to make sure the damage is good, because phase 1's damage wasn't as good as it should have been, but that's fine. There's a room for error with this setup. Now we're just paying attention to the boss. Make sure between damage phases that you equip Lament to recharge, passively recharge the heavy, because you need that recharge for damage. You'll lose so much damage if it's not charged up. We'll do an Rift between us and the bell bearers, because that forces the boss to stomp, giving us more time to get the bell to then do damage. We'll then do a well on damage, just for survivability, because the snipers are sniping us, so which that's what they're gonna do, aren't they? So we'll use a well on that phase, which means we're not going to have an Rift, so we really need a nade kill here. I was realising that. So we're doing that. Then we're doing an Rift. So we're surviving as the boss is coming, because we're getting sniped a lot, but we're surviving. No problem. Then when it gets to DPS, we're fine, because Lament's going to heal us as we're going. Yeah? So this damage is really good. Phase 2 was good damage. It's over now, though. When damage phase is over, come and hide. This is a good place to hide, because only 1 sniper will see you, 1 or 2, as opposed to like 4. You can see how many more snipers there is by doing this trick I'm on about, though. So this is what I'm saying. If I wasn't using Lament, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. The strat would change. I would let the boss port me, which would mean bell bearers would be more difficult, so I'd have to focus a little bit more with them, but there'll be far less snipers. So then when we do come to damage, less stuff is hitting us, and I would actually start clearing snipers a little bit. On this loadout, I'm not doing that at all. Alright, I'm not prioritizing snipers, because it's quite a lot to do if you think about it when you're damaging a boss. So not only have you got to look where the boss is going, you've got to clear bell bearers, then you might, you know, there isn't time to clear all the snipers as well. There's too much going on at once, where this loadout negates all that, which is why I'm recommending it. Right? It doesn't out damage some other weapons, I know that, but I'm not here to sort of tell you what the best damage is. I'm here to tell you what the most consistent sort of flaws is for this, because there's people, as I say, struggling with it. Not only for its mechanics, but for the stuff that can happen that's out of your control sometimes. So that's why. A lot of people are shying away off it and just saying, "Oh, screw it, I'm not doing it." You know, because some people will cap out. You know, everyone's got their own tolerances. You know, I've got a high tolerance, so I can go for a long time at something like a challenge, because that's what I'm sort of used to. That's why I still play this. And if I didn't do that stuff, I probably wouldn't even play this game. That stuff keeps me going. But for some people, they play this game like you would play any other game, where you're just playing it because you like the overall game. So you're not built for solo challenges. Some people just aren't. They're just playing it because they love the story, they love the gameplay, and they want to see where this whole Destiny story thing's going. Right, so it's not meant for those. So I can see why those people would sort of get tired of this dungeon fast. Right, they spend a day at it. Oh, I'm not doing this. I'll leave it. It's only an emblem. That's how some people look at it. Whereas some other people will be like, well, no, I'm not leaving this dungeon until we get the flawless. And there's different types of players, right? So it's not for everybody, but it's not. I suppose it's not meant to be for everybody. We used it well here because we were weak on our health. You know, we got hit by a lot, so I used my well, and we're not going to need. Well, I would still recommend you farm up another well for DPS, but it's not like we're going to absolutely need it, right? Because the boss is less than he's like 10-15%. So the damage is there. On phase 3, we can really relax now. What we don't want to relax on is ad clear. Don't be cocky and overconfident and say, right, that's me done. Right, I can just get all my 4 symbol dunks and not clear any ads. Don't have that mentality, because something can happen where you're caught off guard, or you're not keeping an eye on backpacks. Like their backpacks, the Cabal, when you kill them, as I said earlier, I've said multiple times, if you don't explode them, they'll sit on the ground, and that's an object that can kill you, because the Caiatl could stomp you, but indirectly stomp the backpack, which then kills you. And this is where I think people are dying, and they're saying, how am I dying? What am I dying to? And they don't understand that it's the backpacks. So yes, there is some bugs in this dungeon, but there's a lot of people making errors with it as well, because it's not easy, this. To some people it's not easy. It's you know, they'll be going at it for quite some time. It might be all season for some people, because there's not a lot of videos on it. In terms of covering in depth, in terms of like moment to moment, this is what you do, right? It's more like, look at my Solar 1 phase. And I like that stuff. I'm not saying I don't, because I watch that stuff all day long. But for the average player, that stuff is no use to them. The video is no use to them. It's entertainment. So this video is less entertainment, but more of a useful thing for you to watch. Right, you see, with content creation, like I know this myself, there's some videos I do for entertainment that aren't designed for the player to replicate. Maybe some players might want to replicate, but some people won't. But then there's some videos that are a comprehensive. I don't like to call any of my videos guides, if you notice that. I don't like to call it a guide, because I just don't like that word, right? But a tutorial, you could call it that, where it's a conclusive, comprehensive type thing, where I share my experiences with the dungeon, or any activity, what that might be. What I found to be most consistent, I don't like to call it a guide, because it just isn't that. All right, it's more of a, this is what I've found out with this particular run. This is what I feel as though works. What do you think? And that it's meant to be an active communication there, and then you sort of build a base of people who watch you to then comment, and then it provides like a base of players that think alike, as opposed to going on Reddit, because Reddit is still infested with idiots. There's a lot of idiots on there. There's a lot of good people on there, but there's still a lot of idiots. You can't have a proper conversation with some people on there. You'll ask something, and then there's just idiots, or you'll say something. And Reddit has progressively got worse over the years. In Destiny 1, it used to be... I don't like to be that guy who says, oh, Destiny 1. Destiny 1 used to... you used to go on there and you'd have a communicate, you have a good talk with, random people, but there'll be more positive about the game. There's more negativity about the game now, even though the game's probably the best it's ever been. Bug-wise, no, but generally it's the best it's ever been. You still see people they're twining and complaining constant. But what I'm saying is, when these content creators, they like on Twitch or whatever, they build up their own sort of base, or they do it on Discord, and they talk to other people, and that's what sort of is like in my comments, is that I'll get like-minded people as like me, myself, and that's sort of how it goes, right? So that's why I don't really call it a guide, so to speak. You can use it as a guide, I'm not saying you can't, I'm just saying that I don't really call it as a guide, so to speak. It's more of a, this is what I've found from experience with this dungeon, what works. So the boss is going right side. Notice there's some backpacks in middle that I haven't cleared. So I need to be careful of that. I'm going to lament the final bellbearers because they are in an awkward place. And this is what I'm on about. If the bellbearers positioning is off, then I would just recommend that you lament them. And because that does two things. You can then quickly kill them to then negate a boss stomp. Right? It separates you from the belt, like Caiatl from the belt, basically, as a roadblock. He's going middle, she's going middle, should I say, so we'll just finish off the boss, literally one shot. That was a solo flawless for Duality on a Warlock. Hope you enjoy, thank you.